Welcome to Simpatico Filmworks. I'm Vicki Paddock. Today is February 2nd, 2011, day number 9 of the Egyptian revolution that has the entire world watching and waiting and hoping. One character who is clearly rising to the fore in this dramatic scenario is Mohamed ElBaradei, Nobel Peace Laureate from 2005, along with the IAEA, which he headed for 12 years. In November of last year, not 3 months ago, I had the opportunity to meet and interview Dr. ElBaradei at the 11th Annual Summit of Nobel Peace Laureates in Hiroshima, Japan. In an informal press conference with peace activists and media representatives, Dr. ElBaradei answered a range of questions from the inevitability of war to the future of Egypt. Please watch.
Independent justice system and free press are still in utopia.
It's still under a state of emergency for 28 years, and independent judiciary is a questionable, is a question mark, and it's not a utopia. It's just a question that Egypt and many Arab countries need to shift and catch up with the rest of the world and give people their basic rights. You know, freedom of religion, of speech, of freedom from fear, from want, and so it's a question of time. Change has to come. You know, and without democracy, it's a dead-end street.
Do you think that Obama is not here today because most of the U.S. citizens are still pro-nuclear weapons?
I really do not know. He has a lot of engagement. I do not know why he is not here. If I don't believe that most of the U.S. citizens are in favor of nuclear weapons, I think it's a question of education, frankly. I mean, they still probably think that nuclear weapon is a source of protection, is a source of power, is a source of prestige, and it's not only in the U.S., in many other developed weapon states, and that has to change, and that's why people like me and others are trying to make it clear that, in fact, relying on nuclear weapon is a more of a threat than of a deterrence or security assurance.
What will you do for your country in the future?
Well, I'll continue in my country. I mean, my country is the world, frankly, and you know, I think in a globalized world, you know, whatever we do in one country have an impact on everywhere else. So, what we need everywhere is basically to focus on human security, the right of people to, as I said, to live in, you know, have their basic rights, social justice, and understand that they need to cooperate with each other. That there is no single problem we will be able to solve without working together, from HIV/AIDS to arms control to climate change. So the whole concept of national security, international security has to change, and the focus should be really on human security and the individual. That is, we start and end with the individual.
What do you think is the significance of this event, this summit, being in Hiroshima?
Well, I think it's a reminder. Again, it's a reminder of the horror of nuclear weapons. And as I mentioned yesterday, this was just a symbol of what we can see if we use modern nuclear weapons right now. I mean, it's at least thousands of times more powerful than Hiroshima. So, if we ever think of using nuclear weapons, and that will happen if we continue with the kind of security system, global security system we have, we are doomed to self-destruction. And it's not 1 million people or 2 million people. You might see the end of civilization with that. So we are really this is in my view, the question of the 21st century. What kind of security system, global security system we have, and how we can, as I said, try to develop in our social interaction and as we have developed in other areas, and in medicine and science, natural science and technology everywhere else, but we're still at the social, technology, if you like, at the social technology, we're still very, look back at the Middle Ages, and we need to understand that this is no option. It's absolutely no option. That we have to change our mode of thinking, and we have to find a way to be able to resolve our differences, not through war. And even if we go to war, we should not end up by destroying our civilizations.
When the United States decided to enter World War II, It was only 3 months, and the entire industrial complex in the country was given over to creating war material. And yet now we have a threat that is so much greater even than World War II. Any day, this afternoon, a nuclear weapon could go off somewhere in the world and start the disaster we all fear. And I'm asking, is there something that you all here, the participants, can suggest that the world can do now? We can move fast if we have a plan, because things can happen fast. We've been talking for so long.
No, there's a lot of plans. I don't think we need a plan. I think there's hundreds of plans for moving toward nuclear disarmament. It's a very simple. I mean, it's a question really of a changing mindset. If people were to believe, as was discussed, that nuclear weapons are still a source of power, prestige, and insurance, then we are not moving. Irrespective of whatever we say, whatever. It's really a question of changing the global environment, and it seems that governments are not able to do that on their own, and that's what me and others continue to emphasize, that we need to involve civil society, we need to involve people who have no hidden agenda and who think long term and who are not thinking of being re-elected, but basically thinking of the common good of every human being.
What's the most effective way to bring peace or to make change as an individual in today's world? What can we do?
I think in democracies you have to work through your Congress, you have to work through the media. Media has a lot of power, of course, and you need to work with the media, and you need to work with the legislators in different countries, and tell them that you are not ready to continue to live under this Damocles sword.
Do you have enough power to have a say to a superpower like the United States as your capacity?
Well, I have enough power to say whatever I want to say to anybody. It's a question whether people would listen. I mean, and it's not a question of one individual. It's a question of all of us, saying the same thing at the same time with equal force. So again, as you see the situation right now, you have 9 nuclear weapon states. We have 23,000 warheads. We have thousands of warheads deployed since they were deployed at the Cold War. That they can be launched in a matter of minutes. You still have 30 countries that sitting under the nuclear umbrella, including Japan. And that is, well, you cannot have a system saying we, 30 privileged countries will continue to rely on nuclear deterrence, but nobody else can touch nuclear weapons because they are not good for them and they're dangerous for them. Logically, even that system is not sustainable. But realistically, also, as I mentioned yesterday, it's not sustainable at all. It's particularly with the technology now. Any country who feel that they want to join the big boys can get the technology. And the worst thing of all is, of course, extremist group getting hold of nuclear weapons. Then our discussion here will become esoteric. Then we are not talking about nuclear deterrence. Because if any of these extremist groups will get their hand on nuclear weapons, they will use it. I mean, that is, deterrence is not part of their ideology.
Do you believe that war is inevitable, and if so, why, and if not, why not?
I don't think war is inevitable. I mean, it's we never. Why in the past we lived with a system of slavery, for example. 50 years ago, Rosa Parks could not ride the front of the bus. 50 years later, you have Barack Obama, a black American. So, I mean, we have the power to change things. The power of ideas. It's a power of understanding. The power of understanding that as human beings we have to continue to refine our values. So, the idea that war is inevitable, that we have to, the only way to solve our differences is through killing each other, is obviously something obscene almost. And but we have to find other ways. We have to develop a better system of security that can enable us to resolve our differences through dialogue, through talking to each other, through building trust. It's all about building trust, and continue to stop talking about axis of evil and us versus them and all this sort of stuff, which does not help in any way resolving any issue, as we have seen. That, of course, requires a lot of work by everybody. Require that you build completely re-engineer the whole global security system, including the United Nations Security Council I mentioned yesterday. Is a council is in many ways dysfunctional, and does not represent the 21st century. You need a system where everybody feel that they are a system of security that is global, that is inclusive, and people can trust that they will be protected by that collective security system. Right now we don't have that, and that's why people run to develop nuclear weapon or run to fight each other. But it's a shame that we continue in the 21st century, as I said, very happy that we have Facebook and we have internet and we have mobile and we have gone to the moon, and then at the same time you see millions and millions of people dying, in senseless wars. There's something wrong about our human psychology right now, I think.
What is the likelihood or possibility that Al-Qaeda can get access to a nuclear weapon now?
Well, I think it's a remote possibility of getting a nuclear weapon, but it's much more possible that they get a radioactive source, powerful radioactive source. And that's not a nuclear explosion, but of course it will create a lot of death, a lot of economic dislocation if you have a dirty bomb exploded in the middle of Manhattan or an urban center, for example. That's still a serious issue, and that's why again there was lots of talk about the need to apply the gold standard to nuclear material and radioactive sources to make sure that none of the extremist groups will get their hand on nuclear material. But people like Sam Nunn and others, and Dick Kluger and others have been working for years, and so was the International Atomic Energy Agency, to try to make sure that all nuclear material radioactive sources are protected as good as we can. But it's a race against time, and I hope we cross our fingers. All right.
Mohamed ElBaradei has been variously accused of being an American puppet and a latecomer to the political scene in Egypt, out of touch with his people. Remarks by Senator John McCain on Fox News only yesterday should blow the American puppet theory out of the water. On the other hand, as you can see from the press conference in Japan, Dr. ElBaradei calls himself a citizen of the world. He says his country is the world. So it'll be very interesting to see if he rises to the top leadership position in Egypt. For those of you who are interested in more in-depth coverage, I recommend you go to therealnews.com. They've posted several wonderful video articles on the situation in Egypt and Mohamed ElBaradei. Thank you for watching.